I got to go back out there and run a 5K. Yo voy otra vez afuera en este calor. Es mucho calor y yo voy a correr 5 kilometers. But I have to stop and say a little something about I'm struggling. I'm going to say something about something that a guy named Juan with Spanish. See, Juan with Spanish. He wrote this, and he's saying, you know, nunca he estado en Roma, pero este año yo iré a Italia. And through sheer luck, I got N and A, and I got it correct. And then Juan explains how to use the verb. How to use this, how to use the N and the A along with the verb. And Juan is just fantastic. So knowing that he's fantastic, I had written him a little comment before, and he answered promptly. And what the comment I'd written him is I said, hey, Juan. I said, let me see if I can find it. I said, Juan, I sent him a link to another Spanish practitioner, and I said, hey, Juan, do you think that you could work with her? And so he didn't respond back to that. And so I say, gracias, Juancito, pero mi pregunta es, ¿vaya a obrar con la mexicana? And so Juan says, me encantaría responder a tu pregunta, pero primero necesita entender qué quieres decir. And so I say, ela está escondida aquí. Yo quiero ver un video de usted y ela. And so I say again, voy afuera a correr 5K. Cuando puedo correr contigo. And so he writes back, and this is instructive. People are going to pick up your accent, your skin color, your economic status, various other things. The type that they think you are, and they're going to always revert to the language that they think you should be speaking. So Juan reverts. Okay, do you think that Mexican teacher and I make similar videos? Now look at his face here. Look at his face. So he's wondering. So I'm going to answer back in the language that he feels I should be answering back in. See, you don't have to get upset. Just answer back in the language that they feel you should answer in, no matter what it is. So answer back. No, not at all. But Mexico has around 48 languages. For example, vamos a tener chingazos, porque me gustan y te gustan las chichis de la misma chica. Chingazos is not Castellano. Chichis is not Castellano. Mexicans do not understand such things. So you do something better and different, but her regional touch is beautiful. Thus, you two are meant to make a few videos together. So, okay, back to the running shoes, and let me grab a couple books so that you can clearly see what I'm saying. This is Aristotle, and this is in English, and I have to get it out of English and get it in Greek And then once I get it in ancient Greek, I'm going to have to get it in Latin also. And I need it in Spanish also. And probably in Portuguese. But Aristoteles, categories, it di interpretazione. See, di interpretazione is another book by Aristotle. But what Aristotle is going to say in this book is that as men, we categorize. He's saying that that's one of the number one qualities of the human intellect is to categorize. Unfortunately, today, rather than use the word categorize, we have replaced it with another Latin word, prejudicare. Prejudicare is to judge prior to categorizing. So, if Juan categorizes me as an English speaker, that's just fine. That doesn't mean that he's prejudiced. Prejudicado. That doesn't mean that he has prejudged. Because he has enough evidence that he can make an assertion. But remember, he says the Mexican, the Mexicana. Now, very rarely in Mexico will you find a Spanish speaker, a Castellano. But when you find a Castellano in Mexico, that Castellano will always be working for the newspaper, working for a radio station, working for a TV station, working for the government. Why? Because his Spanish enunciation is so plain, pure, and beautiful and unspoiled by the 48 other languages in Mexico. And when you hear government speak in Mexico, it's always going to be Alto Castellano. Not that no one in the Mexican government can say, oh, vato, yo tengo chingazos contigo y yo pensé que tu madre está un chimaco y tú no jale y tú eres naco. It's not that they can't speak that way. They probably do speak that way at home. But when they're trying to clearly communicate with the public, they are going to use Castellano. So Juan's point is, because I seen in the video of the Mexican lady where she was talking about slang in Mexico. And slang in Mexico, again, is going to be from the indigenous languages, from French and the French conquest, Cinco de Mayo, the French near conquest, Cinco de Mayo. So Latin, French, indigenous languages, and now more and more a lot of English words are tossed in. But I'm going to let you see this book in Portuguese. See? Outrán do rado, os sinos da agonia. Now, sinos, remember I said chichis? Sinos, this is a sino. See that shape? That's a sino. And that shape in this particular book is called a bell. But if you attach this bell right here, watch. I'm going to attach this bell. Hold on, I'm on the wrong thing. There we go, maybe it's here. See how I've attached that bell to my breast? And now what I have are chichis. So in Portuguese, sinos son chichis. Pechos, which is the word, pechos, breasts. See, sounds like I'm going to say a grosero, but no, I'm just pointing out something. Now, this is mathematical because when you say sine, cosine, tangent, the line that comes from this part of the breast is called the sine line, and it's going to go up to the tip here, and it's going to go up to the tip to the nipple of this bell, and that is called the sine. See? So even in mathematics, you can say that, hey, these guys were perverse and they were thinking of sex all the time. But that's the perfect way to remember your trigonometry, is to make a bell, put your hand here, and affix it to your breast. Particularly if there's a girl in class or something and she has some big breasts or some grande chichis, and you can, see, you can visualize. Now, at least one of the trigonomic functions you definitely should know. Every guy should know the trigonomic function of sine, because 90% of the time, of course, we're thinking of breast and sex. But back to what this guy is saying. Okay. In Oceanos de Agonía, he's going to say, and I have it marked, he's going to say this, and I'm not going to be able to find it, but what he's going to say is todos, gente, pensam, outros, gente, tem mau cheiro. Now, I'm not going to interpret that. Go find somebody who speaks Portuguese and let them tell you what it means. Now, the reason I'm going to leave it uninterpreted is because when a Mexican is fighting with a Guatemalan, or a Guatemalan with a Mexican, or they're fighting with some guy from Cuba, or they're fighting with some guy from Argentina, or they're fighting with some guy from Spain, or even Brazilians. The one Brazilian is fighting with somebody from São Paulo, and they're fighting with somebody from Minas, and the guy from Minas is fighting with some guy from the Northeast. And the same way in French, some guy from Haiti who's speaking the patois is fighting with some guy from Paris. I mean, in all of the Romance languages, you see these fights. I mean, and you see a fight that has gone to the fact that now it's a war between the Ukrainians and the Russians, who basically speak the wrong language, the same language, which the Ukrainians are going to be mad at me because I'm going to say, and when a Ukrainian finds this, he's going to say in the comment, how dare you say that the Ukrainians and the Russians speak the same language? We're different people. Okay. That may well be the case. That may well be the case. That's a nice feeling. I don't know if it can be substantiated, but I'll go ahead on and concede that such a feeling can exist. One night, I'm listening to radio Coimbra, out of Portugal. And I understand what they're saying, even though I understand what they're saying in Brazil too. And the Portuguese guy is saying, hey, you know what? These damn Brazilians, they don't know how to speak Portuguese. And he gives an example. And I'll admit, even though I understood what was being said by the Brazilian speaker, it was comical. The Portuguese guys had a point. It was really funny. Then I go to the ex-wife and I play a piece of music in Portuguese. I think gente que lava a roupa no Rio. By one of the greatest faldo singers ever to exist, someone who I love. And the ex-wife, she put her fingers in her ears and she said, hey, she said in Portuguese, I cannot tolerate to listen to that stuff. She didn't even say to that to Portuguese or to Portuguese that's from Portugal. She said, I cannot stand to listen to that stuff. Okay, so what is this guy saying in this book? And what is this all about as I go out there to run? And what happened between Juan and the Mexicana? Yo, Juan, Mexicana, yo, y todo mundo. What? It's from this book, Cienos da Agonía. And what he said is, outra vez, es todo gente pensa que outro gente tem mau cheiro. And what you're going to really love about this book, if you read it, and this is one of Brazil's greatest writers, and it contrasts Americans who fight with everybody on one particular issue. It shows you the difference between American history and the history of other nations. And what's going to happen in this book. And you can read Mark Twain. Read Mark Twain. Because this book is more or less like Mark Twain, but kind of like a different outcome. It's a beautiful outcome. This guy, who is a Portuguesano, he has a son. But he has a son with a brasileira negra. Escrava. Yes. Now, you might think that that is not a point of literature, or that is only a point of American literature. But that issue crops up in nearly every literary work in the world. Believe me. So, toda gente pensa que outra gente tem mau cheiro. Read this book, and whenever you get into these linguistic conflicts between these people in the Imperium, solamente say outra gente. Just say to yourself, toda gente pensa que outra gente tem mau cheiro. If the people speak Portuguese, it's no problem. They'll know about this book. They'll know the cultural reference. And even though they're arguing bitterly, they won't get upset. Mexicans will hear it. They won't know what you're saying. They won't get upset. So, Juan, toda gente pensa que outra gente tem mau cheiro. Então, você pode trabalhar com a mexicana. Tchau.